What up, Pittsburgh Steel fans? Matty P, Marky D here with you for another Steelers Touchdown Under live. Could be Marky D's last one with me due to commitments for the 2023, but we'll see. But mate, how you doing? It feels like it's been a long time between drinks, if you know what I mean, between the last game and going up to this game. It feels.
I'll be honest, man. Like, I'm keen for the game tomorrow, but this whole week, I've just felt flat. Like, I felt flat with, I think, some of the storylines that have happened. I felt flat with some of the fan base. I've just felt flat overall. I don't know what it is. I'm excited for football. Maybe it's the heat as well because it's really hot now in Australia. It's getting to me a little bit. The other day it was 38, 100, and today's going to be 100 or 90 something. But overall, man, like, I don't know. I just think the season isn't done in 14 games. It's done in a whole season. Sometimes I wish we would react at the end of the season. That's not the way podcasts work, nor does the way the fan base works.
Yeah.
But it's like every single week, it's like it changes. After the Matt Canada thing, it was like, okay, we're all kind of happy and chill now. We're good to go. Then two bad losses. And yes, two bad losses was awful and it made an NFL stat. And now the world's ending again. And I just feel very flat. And I get a lot of my news and I get stuff and clips for videos from Twitter and Facebook. And it's really hard to avoid the comments. And then they just bring you down. So overall, dude, I feel flat. And like, I want to get past that. I wanted to cheer the team on. But at the same time, like with your title, they got to, if they show up and start winning games, it's all good. If they don't, then it's just the season's done.
Well, and it's kind of weird for you and I too, because like, it's on a Sunday. Like, we're getting Sunday football for freaking once. Like, we should be absolutely positive. And that's the thing that I don't, and I'm angry at the Steelers media now, and I've defended them at times this year. Like, all week, like last week, between the game finishing and Monday, I reckon I listened to 15 hours worth of videos across Steelers media, Steelers YouTube, everyone. Buy Mike Tomlin, trade Mike Tomlin, do all this stuff, right? The team's imploding. Team's 7-6 with like 4 games to go. Like, let's get real about it, right? Like, there's plenty of time to make it, not make it, all the rest of it. And then the last 3 days, I've noticed they can come back. And if you'd asked them at the start of the season, they would have loved to be 7-6. I'm like, no. You're either on the train or you're not on the train. Now, obviously, the title of the show says it's time for Steelers to show up, or shut it down. I think we will get into why I think it is that way. But like,
can I say one thing to interrupt you with your title? Though your title is in the football sense. Your title is in the
it's not the franchise. It's not the coach. It's not the OC. It's not the none of that. Like, bench the pivot.
Your title is in a football sense. Can they get it done now, or is it time to?
And I'll preview it, right? Mark and I unpack it then. Well, let's go. The reason why I put that in the title is because if I had and this is a summary of the show. Maybe a lot of people we know on YouTube anyway. YouTube, some people don't listen when they look at the video past 3 minutes anyway, right? Yeah. So we're above that. If you made it till now, you're a fucking hero, right? But but quite honestly, if they don't win this game against the Colts, start any player in my book that is young and you want to get some in-season experience, or is cheaper and you would like to keep him on the roster next year, or he's one of I think it's the 16 or 17 players, Shannon said to me yesterday, that have got a 1-year contract. Figure out whether those guys are staying or going. But pretending after we lose this game like we're going to just scrape into the playoffs and suddenly miraculously make the AFC Championship game is absolutely fool's gold. We've already talked about a wasted season in some respects because we don't know what Kenny Pickett is or what he isn't, right? Apart from being good in the fourth quarter and clutch, which I think flies under the radar with a lot of people. So from my perspective, that's why I believe it's show up or shut it down. Because if you're not going to beat the Colts and you're not going to go 8-6 and you're not going to set yourself apart for those last few positions outside of the division winners for the playoffs, you've got to try and salvage something from the season. But that's just my view, and that's, again, about on the field. I'm not saying fire the coach. I'm not saying fire the OCs, although I do think they should look outside. I'm not saying fire, like, Rooney should sell the team tomorrow. I mean, look, you could be the Chargers, like you said to me. It could be the Chargers. But that's been a long time coming. Telesco, their GM. Yeah, anyway, we can get into all that.
The thing is, too, I think for a lot of the media publications out there, if you're written form or audio form or video form, any kind of form or whatever, the easy bait right now after 2 big losses is to bring up the Mike Tomlin thing. But even in the back of their mind, they know it's not going to happen this year. Like, then why would you fire your coach
But
with
I
4
don't
games to
understand
go?
as well with Steeler fans. Like, well, so there's a certain group of the fans. Like, if you sat there through Nolan Cowher's bad years, Mike Tomlin's in a losing season. We've had bad. You could argue there's still been bad years, even though we've had a winning record. But it goes back to that old question. Do you want him on the other side? I forgot who said this on the millions of hours of stuff I've listened to in the last few weeks. Do you want Mike Tomlin on the other side of the rebuild? If you do, then you keep him. You work it out. If you don't want him on the other side of the rebuild, then you may as well move him on. But the rebuild is going to be very ugly without him. And I just think that people have overcomplicated the losing to the 2-10-10 teams and all of that. Like, I do think the injuries factor into it. I do think not having a starting quarterback factors into it. I do think all of those things. I don't think they're excuses. It doesn't mean that it lets them off the hook. If you spot any team in the NFL 20 points, they will beat you. The Patriots proved that, even though they had scored like no points for 3 weeks. They proved you give them a lead, they're going to beat you. And the Steelers gave them a lead between the offense and the defense. I mean, the defense let them go up the field 99 yards to Bailey Zappi and Ezekiel Elliott, who got punted from Dallas because he wasn't worth it.
He looked like a bloody gem out there, didn't he?
100%. And kind of looked like it the week before. And it's not the first time you and I have said those things. But like, I've got a show coming out. I've done it after work for it. There'll be a show in the next few days on the channel that talks about. I'm starting with the D line. Have the Steelers got their money's worth? And the Steelers have gotten their money's worth from the D line this year. It's not that they've got necessarily Cam Hayward's, bad, or it's not necessarily, Benton's bad. They to me, they just haven't gotten their money's worth. Like, they haven't gotten their money's worth on the O line. I mean, we're paying Nate Herbig $3.4 million a year to do what?
I think it's interesting too, is because I think at the start of the season we had high expectations to maybe go to the playoffs, but at the same time there are some fans out there know that if we're a bad team, and they're still shocked and surprised by the loss. If you know they're a bad team, or you think they're a bad team, and you're angry at the loss, that shouldn't surprise you, to me, But at the same time too, can't we have some bad times in 2 years where we can rebuild after having a future Hall of Fame quarterback? And I know his comments too. His comments were, I think, thinking about it after 2 days now, Big Ben, I don't think he should have said those comments, to be honest, about the Steeler way. And
honestly, though, you have a look at the Pat McAfee comments, man. Like, they're bringing up all the Big Ben stuff anyway. Like, people like, who cares what? Like, a lot of people out there, and there was a lot of Steel fans that went like, literally wrote that. They're like, who cares what Ben thinks? He's never been a motivational leader. Like,
right. I don't think he's wrong. I think he's right in certain parts. To do with it, you got to go in there, shake him by the shoulder. But we've been talking about that for 5 years, right? And we know each other for 3 years, so figure that one out. So we've been talking about that for a long time. That they got to shake him by the shoulder. But Ben leaving after 2 years, that's kind of a bad reflection on Ben. That the fact is, I'm not saying I hate Ben. I'm just saying,
yeah, what's his legacy?
Well, if you left that and said now that the Steeler way is dead, or then it's gone, you're already there 2 years ago. Why didn't you leave something? Yeah, why didn't you leave something after that?
Yeah.
I thought my first thought was I agree with Ben. Now after 2 days, having a few sleeps and a few sherbets, didn't have any sherbets, but a few ideas. I'm thinking, why would you say that? That's throwing yourself under the bus. You didn't get your team prepared for the next guy because you never wanted to mentor the next guy. He's been on record saying that. And
he still let it out. Did you hear about the comments he made about Mason recently? He still got it out for Mason.
Really?
Oh. Yeah, he went on a show. It was on Monday. One of the radio shows that he's not a regular contributor. He goes on there more casually. And they said, should they start Mitchell Mason? And he said, there's a reason why he's the third quarterback. There's a reason why he's on the scout team, effectively. Like, I'm summarizing the comments, but this is what it is. People can go pull it up. And he basically said that, and they need to go with Mitch. He's the one that knows the playbook. He knows this. Well, hang on. But any one of us can sit there and watch last week's game and the game before against the Cardinals and all the games last year and any game that Mitch Trubisky's played in the Steelers uniform and sit there and go, that's not the guy. Now, that doesn't mean that Mason by default is the guy, but like, quite honestly, like, what do you got against the kid? He didn't put himself in Steelers colors. Colbert did.
I'm just saying, like I like Ben, and I like what J Devil says here. We still love Ben, like we love Shazier, because Shazier, apparently did that stuff too, the cheating. Anyways, I think it's interesting though, because I think Ben, a lot of times you look at training camp, you look back with now, and you go, in training camp, he didn't take it seriously enough sometimes. Where he was joking around with the pads, or he had the days off for being the veteran, or Big Ben called his own things and did his own stuff. So I don't know like this whole idea that he's talking about the Steeler way. But I want to ask you this question, Manny, because I've got my answer for this thing. What is your definition of the Steeler way? Or the Steelers way of doing things? Because I think everyone's answer is different, and that's why we're having arguments, because everyone's answer is different.
The Steeler way for me is that when you walk onto that field, every person on that field is just another human being, right? And so what that means to me is, who cares if it's who cares if you're going out in the field tomorrow and it's Jalen Warren against DeForest Buckner? Who cares that he's twice your size? You go out there, you smash your pads into him, and you get a freaking yard, right? If you're on defense, who cares that you're up against Quentin Nelson? You go up there, you put Quentin Nelson on his backside, and you get to the quarterback, Gardner Minshew, and you rub his face into the dirt, right? So to me, the Steeler way is you walk on that field, you wear the black and gold, you make a difference. And you do it. And even if you can't, you give every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears to do that. To me, that's the Steeler way, right? And that means being able to come back from deficits. That means going out there from the get-go and shocking a team. That means turning up at away games. That means turning up and respecting the color rush jersey and doing things like the way they played on the field. I will never forget that night, because for so many good reasons, when I watched the Bills game against the Steelers. But you could go way back then and say the Steeler way was starting to be missing. But I also don't think you can sit there and say, if you're not in the team right now, because you don't know everything, you can't sit there and say the Steeler way is dead. The Steeler way is going to go up and down through a season. It's going to go up and down season to season. It's going to go up and down decade to decade. That's what it is. I hear people say all the time, I'm resilient, right? And businesses talk about, and cybersecurity, cyber resilience, business resilience, all this stuff. There's no such thing as being resilient. You have resilience, and sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's down. It's a constant state. It's not a checkbox. And so I don't think, because there are people there are Steelers alumni, veterans, Hall of Famers that would sit there and look at Ben's team in the mid-2000s and go, that's not the Steeler way. There would be certain things. Exactly. We didn't have social media. We didn't have a million Steelers podcasts. And that's why we thank everyone for tuning in. So honestly, I just, from my perspective, we go back to what you questions on the Steelers way, you should wear that jersey with pride, give every ounce of effort to do it. You're proud to be there, right? And you make it happen, and you team first. It's about the black and gold, right? And to me, how can the Steeler way be there when you've got blokes like Deontay Johnson and it Chips Okorafor on this team? Oh, we should just kneel it down. And boo-hoo, it's me. I don't get the ball. I'm not going to jump on a loose ball, right? Even some of the Najee's press conferences, if you look at the stuff, he got asked a simple question. I know the media are asking annoying questions, but he got asked a question in a day or two ago, and it was asked in what are 3 things of how you guys are improving? Don't sit there and have a big argument about it with the journalists. Just say, hey, I think we're more cohesive than we were before. I think we've managed to establish a run game against the tough teams. Even the Patriots have the best run defense. Not everything has to be an attack. And to me, that's an exhibition that exhibits to me that the Steeler way, the Raiders have a flame, right? The flames, it's not a bursting fire right now. It's like the lighter. We're trying to scratch at the lighter to get the flame when it comes to the Steeler way. Fine. It doesn't mean it's a loss forever. We just need to get some freaking fluid in that Zippo and light a freaking, bonfire. That's what we need.
That's what I'm saying, though. I feel like...
Sorry, and what's your...
Well, everything you said is factual. I think that the Steelers way, or the standard, or the way the Steelers play from the 70s, 90s, now 2000s, it's all going to be different, because also culture has changed over time as well. I think that's got a huge thing into it. I think if people are saying, well, Deontay is different to a Hines Ward, 1000% he is, because culture is different. We are different as in it is more me mentality right now. Like you said, we've all got podcasts. We've all got these things going on. We've all got social media. We've all got a voice. We've all got an opinion. Whereas back in the day, didn't really have that voice. So but still a way to me, or the Steelers standard that I think is, it's really kind of like a few things.
I'll give you an example of that, though. Give you an example of that. on the steal away, should Cam Hayward have come out and defended the team publicly?
Maybe not publicly.
That's what I'm saying, right? I agree with what he did in today's culture with today's players. He had to come out and do that as a veteran of this team. But if you went back to the old steal away, it would be like, we're going to say nothing in public. Everybody hates us. We're going to and rev it up.
Who asked who the question? I think he didn't come out and say it. One of the reporters came out and
asked they did on Good Morning Football. They did.
So how do you just not say anything at that point?
Well, he can transition and say, look, we're focused on da-da-da-da-da. He doesn't have to sit there and deeply provide insights on it. I don't disagree with what he did. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're an old hardhead, you might go, well, he should have just grinned and bared it and moved on.
Yeah. No, but that's what I'm saying. I think it's different for every single fan and player. And I think as well, when the players hear that, when Big Ben calls them out, and I want to go back to a point you just said about Chooks not diving on the ball. If that's not the Steelers' way, think back to the playoff game with Big Ben. Did he dive on that football near the end?
Nope.
No. So I think Big Ben's timing.
Even the steal away, don't You want to play the game sitting on there having a big pout with. That was a very special moment with Pouncey. I'm not discrediting. I think that's a man's man. And real men need to be able to show their emotions. Problem when men can't show their emotions. But a lot of people would have said, go back and do that in the dressing room, right? All I'm saying is that it's very easy when you're the older generation to sit there and go, this isn't the way, right? It's a different context.
Can we also think too that everyone brings up the 70s? Look, can I fucking swear on this podcast? It's been fucking 50 years, mate. It's different.
But it's also different because there was there's no proper salary cap back then. The Steelers would never have had that team in this day and age. You could not, unless you drafted all of those guys in the same year, 2 years in a row, and you had a bunch of guys on 50-year options. You'd never have that team in today's league.
But if you're comparing the 2023 team with maybe a time of a second-year rebuild with a rookie quarterback we haven't got to a bad backup quarterback to the 70s play, it's different now. It's just completely different how everything works.
But if we even compared it, Bradshaw had 22 interceptions in his rookie year.
Yeah. Well, I think with Kenny, I think we have a chance, and the way it's playing out, we have a chance with him. But I think going back to this steal away thing, I think Big Ben's timing was really poor, and it came out at the wrong time. Maybe after the season, discuss these things on how the season went, because still got 4 games to go. That's what I'm saying. Your way of saying the steal away or steal standard is play physical, all that kind of stuff. What you just said, play for your jersey, 1,000%. And we haven't seen that just yet. It
goes back to what I've said. Remember what I said about 2 years ago, and you were really surprised about it. And so was when we're back with BTSC. Everyone was really surprised about it. That I would never get a custom jersey with my own name on the back of it.
That's true. Ever. Yeah, I was surprised. Because I've got mine legit behind me.
I have one jersey with my name on it because it's a classic old one that's never been a jersey. And it wasn't even a proper jersey; it was a cup jersey, and that's not from the Steelers. It's from Arsenal Football Club. But honestly, I would never get my name on the back of a Steelers jersey. Why? Because I've never played for the team. It's not my right to stick my name on the back. That's my personal view on sports jerseys. I've always been that.
That means Claypool should give his back then, shouldn't he? He should rub his name out of the history. But no, that's what I wanted to get into, because I know we'll get some football stuff near the end too. But this whole thing around the Big Ben stuff and calling it and saying the Steelway's dead or whatever it may be, right? There's that many different narratives, for people to have their opinion, and every single argument is different. For me, it really is play physical, run the ball, and defense. That's what I've always seen. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be different for every single person. And now the players. The outside noise is larger than ever. I'm not saying this is a good team. I'm saying this team can maybe figure it out if they got some might in them, some hunger, and they get through this game and, like you said, win this game and see what happens. But there's something missing there. There has been, and I think the ripping off the Band-Aid wasn't Canada. We thought, that might fix everything. No, it didn't.
Well, but the thing is, we also don't know. Shannon made this point on the global perspective. So if anyone missed that, go check that out that we did yesterday. It is pretty lengthy, but it's a nice piece of content for your weekend. He talked about that. He talked about the fact that we got the 400 yards against the Bengals. We only got another half a game with Pickett against the Cardinals. We didn't get to see, and people forget, Pickett was 7 for 10 when he got injured. 7 for 10 when he got injured against that Cardinal game.
And
Thanks, Woodburning. Yeah, we're still working on the being monetized. We've got to get to 500, but I wish we could have the super chat. But I appreciate
send our PayPal's over. We'll give our PayPal's or Venmo.
But yeah, hit that. If you hit, as long as you hit that sub button, that's all we can ask for. But even Sam, what Sam said here, you hit the nail on the head, Sam. If they don't come out jacked up this week after everything to defend their coach, to defend their team, to defend their culture, then we know something's missing. And that goes back to the title. I'm saying shut it down because if they don't come out and win tomorrow, and at the moment, it's very hard to tip in their favor. It really is. The heart says yes. The head says something completely different, right? But if they don't win for that, then you do need to figure out who's here for the next few years to get it right and who is not. And if you can't do that in the last 3 games, then ridiculous. And the thing is, if you focus with that of figuring out who those people are, if those people are the right people, you will win 2 of your next 3 games. But if you keep playing what you've got, the evidence is there. After this weekend, as you've had 14 games, most of these players have been there, apart from the bona fide stars. Like Nick Herbig, right? If this is a proper rebuild, the next few weeks, Nick Herbig you need to figure out how close is Nick Herbig going to be in his rookie deal to where Highsmith is. I'm not going to sit here and say trade Highsmith tomorrow, but if this is a proper rebuild and Nick Herbig is getting close, in a year's time, it may make sense to trade. It just may. I'm not saying do it. I'm just saying there's sorts of questions. If we really want to go back to winning a Super Bowl, we have to start thinking about those things as a franchise. And we're not going to do that if we don't know what we've got.
Well, it's funny too, because if the Steelers players, if they don't want all this, media attention, the outside noise, then there's only one thing you have to do, and just go out there and play as hard as you can and win the game. If you start winning the game like that, then the questions won't come, because it's all fueled off basically this latest narrative now. No one talks about Matt Canada. He's gone, dust, see you later. Now it's questioning the Steeler way or Mike Tomlin's way of doing things, this kind of stuff. If you want that to end, then simply you're right. Back up your coach and back up the team and go win football games physically and dominate. Go do a Raiders game if you can. Go and do that. But the way the Steelers play is just...
The Raiders have literally gone from winning a game 3 points to scoring 63 points.
That's amazing. In 4 days. Against the...
I've always rated Aiden O'Connell, by the way. He was undersold at Purdue. Like, I think that's... yeah. But I want to bring up Young just as a segue. Mate, you hit the nail. I can't agree with you more, right? So he says, why are a ton of players not putting on their dang mouth guards in?
I always thought that. I've
not understood that. Particularly, I played rugby, right? You didn't have a helmet, but you had a mouth. You were not allowed to play without a mouth guard. I've watched that save people's teeth, right? And I have never understood that. But you know what? If you don't have your mouth guard in, are you hitting players hard enough?
Is that a tell maybe for that they're not running a route, or is that a tell that they're not blocked? Because I think the blocking's been poor as well, by the way, from receivers and getting off the line and Pickens and Muth. I think I've seen some route running from Muth lately, not picking on too much, but boy, oh boy, it looks lazy out there.
You know what else I find distracting? I just say it. I can't listen to Alex Highsmith's press conferences anymore. I love the guy, but yeah. Well, the answer to that is I can't.
Too many knows.
Someone in the comments on the Steelers video the other day wrote, "We should turn the knows into a drinking game," and then someone commented below, and they're like, "We'd be dead." One interview.
Well, you're not wrong. But that's one of the probably might be question of the year. I've thought of that, but never thought about asking that question.
Yeah. Exactly. Steelers freak. Wide receiver's mouth guard's out means run. But you know what I hate? Devin Bush used to wear his mouth guard out, he used to be hanging out the side a lot. And I used to think you're just doing bare minimum coverage. You're going to be the fourth guy into the tackle.
Are they just communicating on the defense and then they put it back into play? Or is it?
Some that you do see that where they'll snapshot and then they'll cut back and they'll have it in. But my thing is, you have it in there as soon as you're lining up, it's in there ready to go. You're full throttle, ready to make a hit. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It is
intriguing. You said you just said a few moments ago that your heart says win and your head says no. I actually think my heart this week says I don't know. Like, I don't know this week. Like, like it's just been such an odd week, and it's just been focused on this, constant talk. Like you said, 15, 16, 17 podcasts, all about the same thing. And we're all part of this collective Steeler Nation. That's why things feel like that, I'm keen to see tomorrow, but also I'm not excited to see Trubisky in the offense. That's what really stops me from.
Well, that's what Shannon and I talked a bit about this on the global perspective for everyone out there, and I asked them the golden question: how long? And I'm going to ask you the golden question too, Mark. How long is the leash for Trubisky?
If they play Kenny next week versus the Bengals, I say one half. If they don't play Kenny next week, I say a full game. Because the thing is, I think as well, what I see is maybe Mason Rudolph should play or start. But the minute they go to him, there's no one else behind him besides the practice guy. He can't keep going from.
So I asked Shannon that as well, and he had alternative. I'm more in your boat, but I said to him, but can they go back? I said, my thing is, I think they're worried about going to Mason because they can't turn around after that. And he said, well, if Mason had an absolute stinker, you could go back to Mitch, and it's a lesser of two evils. And that's a fair point. That's a totally fair point. But then Shannon made the point. He's like, he said, what if the franchise is scared that Mason is the guy?
Yeah, they made a mistake and they look foolish. I could see that from not
because
just
we never had to. We could have had Mason, not spent $10 million on Trubisky, got a proper linebacker, center, tackle, or cornerback. Hoped in the draft to get Pickett, or traded up in the draft to get Pickett, which we got anyway. I mean, hindsight's all 2020, remember? But like, it's an interesting narrative. It's an interesting narrative.
Yeah, but they also benched him for Duck though, and went back and forth, right? So I don't know if the organization would go like that. I feel like what they're doing is if they give Trubisky 11 days prep now, like a real prep to be a veteran quarterback, if he still stinks it up like he probably will do, then yeah, maybe you try Mason in the second half. I have heard ideas, like one idea, I saw an article saying that Kenny could be back for the Bengals game, maybe. But that was like more of a rumor, not an actual report. If he comes back for that, that'd be fantastic. But I don't know. I don't think so.
How many days? That'd be 18 days, I think.
2 to 4 weeks. So is that
originally? Yeah, but I remember seeing with the surgery that surgery is a minimum 21 days.
And look, it's no guarantee if he comes back, we're going to win. It's just like I just feel like the offense has a bit more chance to do something with Kenny Pickett rather than Trubisky, even though he's a veteran guy there for 7 years. So there's a lot of problems there's a lot of problems. We could do a 4-hour show. How many problems are on this team in terms of defense to Terrell Austin, to head coach Mike Tomlin, all these? There's so many problems in this team than just focusing on one thing or one player. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. Mason Cole still snapping the ball right down near the ankles. That's not good. Like the disconnect now.
Mason Cole's one of the first people on day one of the offseason.
But even so, all the blokes now, Deontay, Najee, Cam, and all these dudes are talking to the media, like you said. They're not talking. I don't know if they're talking together, but they're telling us what's going on. And in recent years, we didn't really see that. It's kind of been hush hush most times. So they're getting frustrated. You can definitely see that. And I think the fan base is feeling that too. I'm
loving the discussion about pitchforks and lightsabers in the live chat. Tell me what color lightsabers you got. I got a green kyber stone and a gold kyber stone. I might have to take my lightsaber to the Steelers game next.
You have a lightsaber?
I got a lightsaber. I like a proper one that I built at the Disneyland thing.
Did you hear this one too? Merrill Hodge about tight end blocking. That was awesome.
Yeah, Shannon and I talked again. We talked a bit about that on the global perspective.
I don't think he's wrong, and that's the thing, though. I think as well. I said this the other day. I feel like sometimes our opinion is based off a collection of, you said 15, 16 podcasts and everyone else's opinion, right? And it's also what we see. And the funny thing is, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 7-6. So my hopeful side says, yeah, if we figure it out like last year, go on a bit of a run, we got a chance to at least go to the playoffs. But on the flip side, this team is very frustrating to watch because what's going to happen in the first quarter if we have 0 points? Again, like we have the last 3 years. We're going to be down.
We've got to roll Mason out. Unless Mitch went down the field and looked not remotely productive, you've got to roll Mason out.
But then do you stick with Mason until Kenny comes back kind of thing? Because I'm not against that. I'm just saying I don't know what the Steelers are going to do.
Yeah, Someone needs to make a massive splash play. Someone's got to make a massive splash play. Like they've got to. We need like a 30-yard Pickens down the field. We need a Pat Freiermuth stiff arm to the face. We need something like that.
Yeah, and I think that also goes on to like I think the team. I think Big Ben leaving as well. I know Big Ben made the comments, but everyone's now going, well, we can't win Super Bowl this year. But Big Ben leaving is a huge like money side and just also not getting things prepared for the next 2 years. That's been a huge, like, and
also
void.
the thing about Ben, and I want to relate it to what Steelers Freaks put in, which is right. Like Art has to be willing to pay for better and bigger coach stuff. Again, you go back like
you talked about that last week, right? Didn't you?
Well, Chan and I talked about it a little bit last week, but we talked about a lot in yesterday's episode about. And I have an article back on BTSC. If you really like, if you put in the right Google terms, you should be able to pull it up. I actually wrote an article back in 2020, I think it was, for BTSC 2021. And I talked about why the Steelers investing in there should be a salary cap for coaches in the NFL because it's unfair to some teams, but teams should go out there and pay. And it is one of the few things you can do in the NFL where there is no cap and no rules about it that gives you a difference on on-field play. But this goes back to Ben. Like Ben sits there now. I don't get me wrong. Like he's a legend. He's won 2 Super Bowls. He can say what he likes. But like, he was horrific for an offensive coordinator to work with. I mean, Bruce Arians tried to get him killed. Fair enough. Ken Whisenhunt didn't get the job. I think if Ken Whisenhunt hadn't have left when Tomlin got the head coaching role, imagine imagine Tomlin defense with Whisenhunt offense with Ben. I reckon they would have won. I reckon they would have been a shot at back-to-back. You
could also say too. Did I don't want to pick on Ben too much, but I think he's made the comments, so he's opened the door for a lot of criticism, right? But he's also, did Big Ben win those Super Bowls where he threw the interceptions in one of the worst quarterback ratings in the 40? No, the defense won that, and the running game with Bettis. And also in 43, he threw an interception, and then Debo saved him, right? So he went down the field. So the defense, that's still a way to me. Like I said, it's physical, run the football, and defense. And I would even say that's over even Kenny Pickett or any other quarterback I've seen. I love Big Ben. I love what he did. But at the same time, his comments opened the door for criticism. And the players have all right to fire back.
But we couldn't create an offense. Like we had to have Randy. Mason Rudolph wasn't even allowed a quarterback coach. Like I just think people select certain things. But I know you've got to run the game. So I think, and it sounds some good stuff here, Young with Bernie. Yeah, Wisconsin, those games look freaking awesome. I'd love to go. Absolutely love to go. There's a chance I might be able to go to the college football playoff this year if Texas make the final game. But yeah, in terms of tomorrow's game, Mark, like, we talked about the head and the heart thing. Do you have any predictions? What do you think is going to happen? And do you have any advice for Steeler fans regardless of the result?
I tell you what, this is one of the games I have, like, this feels to me like the Jets game again last year where I knew Trubisky was starting the full game and had, like, all this kind of stuff. I actually have, like, I'm not as excited. I'm keen for it, but I'm not as excited as I should be. I actually don't have any expectations because I know it's been a really heavy week from all the Steeler stuff, all the Steeler narratives, and the players are frustrated. The fan base is frustrated. And I know a win won't fix that overall. I want to see the team win. I want to see them do well. I would love just to see them play good football and like have one of those moments, like you said, a big splash play where you're like, wow, this team can do something, or hold them under 10 points and we score something good and a good feeling after a game, after a win. That would be fantastic.
Like, you know what I want to do? The game's like 8:30 tomorrow morning, right? 8:30. Mm-hmm. Like, now, if my tooth's fixed from the dentist today, I've been battling this tooth issue. That's why there's been less videos this week out there, guys. Quite honestly, I'm going to get up at 6. The game starts at 8:30 for Mark, and I'm going to get up at 6. I'm going to shove a piece of meat in the smoker for 4 hours, 5 hours. I'm going to let that cook. The game kicks off at 8:30, so it'll be 2.5 hours in. By the fourth quarter, I'll be able to open up my yummy brisket, or it'll be ready for right after the game. And I hope I can tuck in to some brisket and celebrate a Steelers win. Right? That's what I'm hoping for.
I've got one more thing for you. Why everyone talks about firing Tomlin and this team's bad? Why can't Tomlin walk away and say this team's bad? You know what I'm saying? Why can't he say, I don't want to deal with this team anymore and walk away? Why is it always put on him that the team's bad because of him? Why can't he say this is the absolute hot mess? Dudes, I'm out of here. You guys can have
When
this.
Mike
I'm going to
Tomlin's
go
book
somewhere else.
comes out eventually, because he's going to go on the speaker circuit and business success and all that, like he 100% will. Or when Mike Tomlin does retirement stuff and talks about, when Mike Tomlin is no longer the Steelers coach, we're going to know the ins and outs of who we really thought was good and who we really thought was bad. And I think he's been stuck with some bad players. And the only thing he can do is go down the man motivation route and this player's coach. But I think he's had this problem for years. And Shan and I talked about that on the show yesterday. And it's something I'm going to unpack on a big theme I want to talk about this offseason. You and I with Shannon, with who I'll do it on my own. You're not going to win, and you weren't going to win going back to about 2012 in the NFL consistently and be a Super Bowl challenger if you think that drafting a super good player in the first round is good enough each year. The Steelers' second and third and fourth rounds have been average, and that is where teams that have. I did a podcast on this back on with BTSC Steel Curtain Network. Like the teams that regularly make the Super Bowl or regularly make the championship games over the last decade or so always do well in the second, third, and fourth round, and we haven't done that, and that is something that totally has to change. And so for Mike Tomlin, with the new scouting department, I'm really hopeful for that this year because we saw how good it was last year. Like this current crop of rookies are really, really good. But Mike Tomlin hasn't necessarily had the players there to get the job done. Pure and simple. Like I had a lot this week about, Ben talked about Belichick and Brady, and it's not just about the quarterback. Belichick had some awesome defensive guys. Had a guy like Gronk who was a freak of nature. They cheated a lot as well, right? But like, you look at some of the different guys, like people always talk about Peyton Manning with the Colts, but at the same time, they had like guys like, Reggie Wayne, and they had Dwight Freeney, who at the time was like an NFL sack leader. Like they had a bunch of good guys that everyone just shoves off to the side all the time. And that's why, like, I went through and looked at some matchups in tomorrow's game. And like the Colts have got a wide receiver out there who's almost got 1,000 yards on the season, right?
Yep.
And, Minshew's got more yards than what Pickett has had on the season so far, right? Like I rate Pittman. I always have. He's terrific out of USC. He's just a combat catch guy to the nth degree. I think he's like 216 pounds, 6'4". Like I looked at the running backs and stuff. The running backs, the Steelers run the football. That's probably the one area that's the difference maker. But quite honestly, like they're doing some really good things. We have not nowhere near as much pass yards. I think the leading Steelers wide receivers on 670 yards. But we've got the ball to way more people than they have. They've pretty much only had like 4 people really receive the football, whereas we've got like 6 or 7. So it's just different schematics. But like, quite honestly, like you've got to look at that whole team. And that's where I think this is really interesting because as the Steelers play this game against the Colts, the game against the Bengals, the game against the Seahawks, and the game against the Ravens, some of those teams have good players and aren't overall a pretty good team. And a couple of those teams have a good team, but do they have a superstar? No, they don't. Like, and that's what has been interesting with the Steelers is in the losing the last 2 games is they've lost 2 games to teams that have kind of average. Like the Patriots, well, they were kind of the 2 opposites. The Patriots had a good team or a good team in terms of how they play. Don't necessarily have great players. Like Juju Smith-Schuster showed up that week. He'd done nothing all season for them. But the Cardinals, Connor Murray, basically got it done for them.
Murray turned up, man. I was against him, but he turned up, to be honest.
Murray, yeah.
Yeah, he was coming off injury, and then he turned up to play and then got things done. And attack the middle of the field, the tight ends, all that kind of stuff. I think as well, I think Mike Tomlin, I think he has been, maybe off this year in terms of like maybe his press conferences, maybe he does look a bit frustrated out there. So, but at the same time, too, for my last point before we start to end it, every team's got problems. We're 7-6. Let's not act like we're one of the only teams in the NFL that's got problems. Every NFL team has problems. Every single one. And it's this year, I think, as well. It's not one of those years where Drew Brees is getting 5,000 yards passing. There's no, like, even the Chiefs are beatable, right? Dolphins are beatable. Every team, I think, this year has a lot of problems and injuries, all those kind of things.
Well, the defense has figured this out. I heard this narrative this week. The defense has figured out NFL offenses. That's why it's so much.
Well, I hope it comes back to defensive football. It'll be fantastic. And also, all the AFC quarterbacks are going down. There's like only a few left. You know what I mean? So it's not to sit here and say the world's ending just for the Steelers. No, the NFL is tough. It's a tough product. And also sometimes it's tough to watch because penalties and stuff like that. But it's not the end of the world. And I do feel frustrated, low or flat this week. But we'll see how it pans out. If a good victory happens, I'm always going to cheer him on regardless. I would just hate to see us. You go.
No, go.
I just hate to see us 2-10 because I would know what to expect from the fan base then.
So here's my message to Steelers fans out there: win, lose, make the playoffs, not make the playoffs. Steelers are the number one team I support. I don't support any team in all the sport the way I do the Steelers. But I am a Philadelphia Flyers fan. That riles a lot of people up from Pittsburgh. But I'm loyal. That's the first time I ever went and watched play, who are having a ridiculous season for where they were meant to. I've been a Minnesota Timberwolves fan since Kevin Garnett, like in the late 1990s, and they're killing it at the moment, right? Texas are in the college football playoffs for the first time in like over a decade. And it wasn't the playoffs anyway. It was back bowl games. So being a sports fan, things come in swings and roundabouts. Usually, I have the Steelers doing well every season, and every other team sucks. And this season, and I've got Arsenal in the Premier League that I think they're still top of the Premier League as of last week. But every other team that I have are winning and doing really, really well. Things change. That's the great thing about sport. There's always another game. There's always another season, right? But we just need to go out tomorrow and make sure that this season is as long as it possibly can be, because really this team, I'd love to see them get to the playoffs and then see what happens. Just see what happens after that, right? Like,
we don't know what
I'm not saying they're going to make a championship game. I'm not saying they're not going to get belted by 50 points. But I just want to see them. There's enough guys that have worked hard enough that they deserve the playoffs. But the only way you're going to get that is if you win 2 of your next 4 games minimum.
I would love to see them go on a stretch and just dominate, bring back that Steelers way and win 4 games and have a chance.
And that's what you said there. What do I need to see from the offense? I want to see Steelers way. It might even have to be a 30-yard catch from Pickens. What if it's a Jalen Warren stiff arm to the face, and then he gets and instead of getting 5 yards, he gets the first down? That'd be enough for me. If I see a couple of those in the first quarter, that'd be enough for me.
The 5th team, I think, in the NFL, in rushing yards of recent before those 2 games with the Arizona versus New England or something like that, they were getting like 170 yards a game, 160 a game. So we are getting back to that, but there's a lot of problems. There's a crap ton of problems.
This run game that'll be another thing. If this run game can't get going by the mid-second quarter, that'll tell you that regardless of the scoreline, the Steelers will lose this game because their run defense has been crap again. Colts run defense has been crap. And they play a 4-3. This O-line should dominate that 4-3. Absolutely dominate the 4-3. And I think they'll go tight end heavy. There'll be a lot of Hayward. There'll be a lot of Connor Hayward, Freemuth, Washington on the field. There'll be a lot of Najee and Warren on the field at the same time. And if Mitch Trubisky lets that happen and lets those guys soak up the ball and just literally just plays give off guy to the tight ends and lets the runners do their thing, he will walk away with a win and no interceptions and maybe even a touchdown. But
I'm going to go my final point, then you can wrap it up. Steelers win 19-6. That's what I've got.
I love it.
I hope so.
I'm going to go 22-19.
Wow, that's different. Chris Bozzi field goal. I always ask you this question: is that we're going to win the game, or defense going to shut it out at the end? It's a big difference.
Oh, like 4th quarter drive or us holding on?
Yeah. So we winning 22-19 the field goal to win, or is it we up by 22-19 and we have a defensive stand to win?
Oh, very clearly it's going to be defensive stand because we all need to have our hearts played with as per freaking usual. Yeah.
Yeah. On a Sunday football too. I've got my
That is if we're not down by more. If we're down by more than a touchdown at halftime, I don't think I think then we're doing what we did last time, and we're never really going to.
Well, let's be honest. Steelers can't score points. They can't move the ball down the field. It's legit doesn't happen. So saying Trubisky, hey Trubisky, go and score 14 points in 11 minutes. Sorry, go and score 11. Was it? Yeah, 2 touchdowns, 11 minutes. Couldn't get done. It's like how? It sucks. Anyways, I hope we can.
Well. Thanks, everyone. Great live chat today. Honestly, guys, absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to getting you some more content as we go. Lots of cool stuff here. Mark's got to run the pickleball. I've got to run to the dentist and get this freaking tooth sorted. Teeth pain is the worst, let me just say. But Dante, I will respond to your question. You say, what makes you think the Steelers are going to bounce back? I'm not saying they won't. I'm just playing devil's. That's basically the summation of this show. Is like, the only people that know that are the Steelers.
Other players.
And let's see what happens in tomorrow's game. Marky D, as always.
Go Steelers. Here we go.